to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the Lincoln County Commission regular session. It says May 16th, but
Well,
June-
mercy, the whole room's gone.
June 13th, 2019. Members present are Darrell Baker, County Clerk, Phoebe Harless, and Josh Showers. Commissioner Vance is absent. The first thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our last regular session, which was held on May 16th, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last regular session?
So moved.
Do I have a motion? I'll second that. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Under public comment. Okay, we have one person signed in to speak under public comment, Ron O'Polley, and it's regarding the Duval Fire Department.
Yes, I'd like to ask the commission to talk to 911 director, have him talk to the fire chief there at Duval Fire Department about their pagers. Some reason, when emergencies coming up there, people on Garrett's Bend Valley Fork's not receiving, not being toned out or not receiving nothing on their pagers. See if it's a tire situation or a radio situation, but I'd like for him to talk to them, see if we can't get that problem took care of.
Okay, and that's Nathan still, right?
Yes,
Okay.
right.
All right, we'll get a hold of him and have him to call him and see.
Okay,
what-
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And how long has this been an issue, if you were?
Probably 6 weeks, 8.
Okay, the next thing is discussion of concerns and possible action. We have Lisa Wells here with us from Region 2. I assume for maybe the last of drawdowns?
No, it's not. Gosh, you know how this thing keeps going and going and going. I do have a drawdown tonight, but before that, I have a couple other odds and ends. You know that I've had to keep adjusting things repeatedly. And the root of the issue has been a little over $3,900 that the accounting firm returned to the pot. And that's just thrown everybody off. I have worked with the development office. And now we're gonna have to kind of adjust and tweak again. It's great to return it and move it to construction, that's all fine and good, but what have we ran into? They approved, you've done a budget amendment. I spent probably a little over an hour on the phone with Todd Goddard from the development office last week as he was processing that drawdown. They had approved a budget amendment through the development office, but the problem is with that $3,900, it didn't get put back into the system in the state auditor's OASIS system, which is going to throw everything off. He has his own tracking mechanism, I have mine, but those are all easily to tweak. Apparently something along the way didn't get put in, so trying to figure out how to make this 30, because they will not process any drawdowns unless everything totally adds up, which is understandable, but what he has suggested I do tonight in order to do that before we go on to the next drawdown. Our previous drawdown, which was drawdown number 16, he has asked that I kind of go back and start fresh, like with the original budget on this one form before the budget amendment. And just basically, we had a budget amendment that moved all the extra money back into construction, which was inclusive of that $3,900. He would like to kind of put this back to reflect the original budget, go ahead and process it. The amounts of the drawdown itself for the $12,535.09, which was drawdown number 16, stays the same. It's just basically getting all the budget items to line up with what's existing in OASIS. So he can go ahead and just process this drawdown. And then I'm going to resubmit budget amendment number 4, which was already approved, but we're doing it again because this way it kind of follows this and he can make sure it follows the trail it needs to do to reflect that $3,900 in accounting. Basically, all the numbers stay the same in the drawdowns. This is just a very systemic paper trail he can do at the state auditor's office, flagging every step of the way that they need to allot for that $1.
So it was number 4 and number
Well, first we'll go, I'm gonna have to resubmit the request for payment form itself for drawdown number 16.
In
And
the
it's-
amount of what? Say that again.
The drawdown amount
12,000 something.
12,535.09, which it didn't change, you've already approved the drawdown,
Right.
so to speak. You don't necessarily have to approve it again, this is more or less, the request for payment form basically shows the entire budget for the the community development block grant funds. We're just going back to the approved budget amount is going to be the original budget amount before any tweaking, if that makes any sense. when
So
we're moving
are we
line
going
items.
to say we need a motion to approve the request for payment form for
That would be-
drawdown number 16?
That would be, that sounds great.
To sign. To sign, does it need sign?
Yes, it does.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion, I'll second it, all in favor, aye. Ayes carried.
Sorry about all the
That's all
confusion,
right.
but when you were dealing with multiple systems of tracking, you gotta, as I said, it's kind of a shade, kind of tweak. We didn't want to lose any money, and we're not. It's just basically ensuring that we do not. But who knew that little $3,900 return back to the pot would create such chaos? So now I'm going to submit for budget amendment number 4 again. It is the same budget amendment, other than I tweaked 26 cents because we had 26 cents still laying out in the ADA line item, and he wanted that moved out, so that would not cause any confusion too.
So are we going to say this is a revised?
You can say, yeah, I would, I think to
Since we've already.
not to create any more confusion, this is revised drawdown number, or budget amendment number 4.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept that as she is presented? Okay, I have a motion, and I'll second it. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
And hopefully this will be it. We really.
All right, there you go, Lisa.
Okay, now let's present drawdown number 17. And how this is going to flow, this one will reflect the budget amendment. So the way he's going to process them are like very much in order with the revised form for drawdown 16, then the budget amendment, and now we have drawdown number 17. So you'll be signing another request for payment form for drawdown 17. And it reflects back to what we were trying to do originally, and hopefully this will get everything through. But budget drawdown number 17 is in the amount of $34,213.67, and it's for one invoice from Chinaki Construction. The invoice itself is for $148,808.80, but we're paying the bulk of it with the Corps of Engineer funds. Basically, this is acting as the match, and the required match is $34,213.67, which is this drawdown.
Okay. So this is drawdown request number 17, which this is a new.
This is a new one.
request.
This is this month's draw.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept drawdown number 17?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And as far as the project's going, the contractor's still got a few more items on the punch list to knock out. Those are the remaining things that the inspector found that needs to be tweaked, and so I actually talked to the engineer at another meeting today. There's still some outstanding things that need to be taken care of. And until that's taken care of, we will not know what, if any, money's left over. So those kind of things that if there's any additional work that can be done, that's still kind of an outstanding piece. So hopefully, by next month, we'll have a better idea.
Right? So you've got something else to say? No. All right, lady.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda under discussion is Commissioner Stowers regarding the judicial annex.
Yeah, so if you recall the last meeting, we had a good discussion about the issues of space in the courthouse. Part of what came out of the last meeting was that we were going to get together with all the stakeholders, with anyone that was concerned about space in the courthouse. So we did that a couple of weeks ago with Judge Hope, probation, other elected officials that have space in the courthouse. And essentially just with the goal of throwing options out there to say, here's options. No matter how crazy the option would be, here's an option that we could do to help alleviate the space issues in the courthouse. So we did that, and it was, I thought, a very productive meeting. I thought it was a very open and frank meeting, and I appreciate everybody that participated in that and threw out ideas. With that, we discussed functionality, we discussed legality, making sure that any option that we were considering would be following the law in terms of the space that was required, in terms of where they needed to be in proximity to certain functions. That is obviously paramount. We want to make sure that we're following the law. Obviously want to make sure that it's functional and make sure that it's as convenient as possible, but also understanding that there was no option that anyone that was at that meeting that threw out any other option that did not include doing some kind of build out of the annex. It's just that simple. There's no space for the additional work that probation is having to take on, the additional people that probation is having to take on. There's just no space. So there's just going to have to be a build out of the annex. So with that said, to me, it comes down to one, functionality and cost. And we need to make sure that we obviously are dealing with taxpayer dollars, and we're dealing with a limited amount of that to begin with. So it's trying to find an affordable way that legally serves the purpose that we need it to serve. So, with that said, I won't go through all the options that were discussed, but I will just throw out what after some thought and discussion with everyone there, what I think and what I would recommend that we do as a commission. And again, it's a discussion for sure, but of all the options that were thrown out, what I think, again, nothing is perfect, nothing is going to be make everyone happy, but the most viable option in terms of affordability and everything that I just mentioned, I believe is to move probation across into the annex, have a build out of not only the Sunday school area but the sanctuary, and to justify that, I know it's going to be an imposition, but I think that we've come to some short-term relief for probation. In the meantime, we've had discussion with the prosecutor's office to give some short-term relief that I believe he's amenable to until we can get the build-out completed. But I think in terms of who's growing, the probation office is growing. We've been told by probation that, and by Judge Hope, that it may even continue to grow with these new pre-sentencing initiatives that's being taken on. So I would hate to rearrange the courthouse as is with probation here and run into an unfortunate situation where we have to go through this again. I think since probation is the one that is growing, it just makes the most sense to build out the annex to probation specs, what works for them, how they can grow in that space, and go from there. So that would be, again, my recommendation. I'm more happy to talk about any other options that were discussed, but I would recommend, and with discussion with the prosecutor's office, because I know that probation had short-term needs and long-term needs.
So
And-
short-term,
Short-term, the discussion was that the prosecutor's office could give some immediate relief with some moves that would be made. I believe, we had a discussion with him. He seemed amenable to it. And in the meantime, maybe doing some things upstairs that are long overdue. But I think that would provide some immediate relief for probation while we're doing the build-out, and then eventually move all of probation over into the annex. Now, with that said, I think with the discussion with the prosecutor's office and the short-term relief for probation, there was concern on a timeline as to completion of the build-out, because it's obviously going to be an imposition on the prosecutor's office with the moves that are going to be made with short-term relief. And it was, my discussion with the prosecutor that it's my intention, and I think the intention of the commission, to have this done ASAP. Mentioned that we could even potentially have a discussion at this meeting about advertising for bids for the build-out at this meeting, getting it advertised within the next week, trying to get that awarded and getting work done with the goal of having it completed by fall, by September sometime, so the prosecutor's office can have their space back. So that's my recommendation. Again, I know it's not, it's going to be inconvenient for some, but of all the options that were thrown out, I think it's probably the most affordable and the most functional of the ones that were thrown out there.
Well, we had different projects over there, we kind of done it in phases with the space that we fixed up for the public defenders and then the election center. When you put stuff out for bid, people think, oh, it's government, they have all kinds of money, and they get these humongous, like, thunder and lightning bids back. So what we did with them is we just used the people on community service. They went over and did a lot of the work, like tore the carpet up, they even helped put the floor down, did some painting, and they did a really good job. I was just thought maybe we could use them for a lot of that stuff and not bid that out, and just bid out, maybe even hire somebody to do it, a person that,
Some branding.
yeah, and then just,
I think
because the
Jerry even
construction.
had some success that building he worked on, doing
Instead of
it
putting a
that
big
way.
company.
As
Yeah, I
far
mean,
as cost
I'm
of
not-
That's why we did the day report center.
Yeah, I'm not, I just
think
threw it
that's our
out.
best.
I just threw that out in terms of trying to get the ball rolling
To
down the
keep going
road.
with the project.
Whether we bid it out, whether we go that route, I just think it's
On the
imperative
brief,
that
yeah.
we get it done quickly, especially since the prosecutors agreed to give that short-term relief.
How can you bid it out so quickly though if you don't have the floor plan and design?
Well,
Now, I
that's
just
what-
meant we'd get the specs together and.
We won't
and
really-
We would agree at this meeting to advertise as quickly as we could.
If we
So
do
once
the
we got
way,
the specs
if
together.
we do, like, you could get with Mary, Josh, maybe whoever, get what you think, how many people you have, what the floor plan that we have over there, sit down, we can figure out, like, where you wanna be, where you want your people to be and all that. And then we could just,
Anticipating such move, I've already started thinking that way.
and then we could just have them go in, start tearing out the carpet, all that. We're gonna have to try to do, we want it to be nice, but we're gonna have to do it as cheaply as we can without.
I'm accustomed to that.
And, you help with that at the day report center and at Parkland.
Twice.
But again, I think part of the goal is because the probation is the office that's growing and has the potential to grow further, that's part of the thought process, that we design it to allow for that growth.
I can understand that.
Yeah,
Logistically inconvenient, but I understand the logic.
right. And we appreciate your patience with this, we do. We
Have you
know it's
discussed
not-
it with Judge Hope?
Huh?
Have you discussed it with Judge Hope?
I have not. I mean, the discussions that we had that day, he was involved with, so.
Right. But, he plainly stated he wanted probation in the building.
I heard that. But I heard that.
Okay, so we're going to agree, you can go ahead and, I guess, move in the agreement you all have with the prosecutor into that space next week maybe, or whenever.
Yeah,
and then
there
we'll-
was a scenario where I guess essentially the assistant prosecutor's office would move out. Probation can have it short-term, to again alleviate that short-term need, once there was an agreement on what was going to occur.
Prosecutor.
Yeah, so.
although he hadn't told me he agreed to that.
Oh, he told us that he was amenable to it if this course of action was taken.
Right, he wants to
Right.
see it going, so
Yeah.
when we, I think once we agree.
He didn't want to move and then nothing else happened.
Short-term
So-
become long-term?
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, he wants
And
us
I
to make
understand, and I
that.
understood
I
that.
understand that too.
Okay, so give me a motion, Mr. Stowers.
Well, I mean, do we need a motion? I mean, if we're
Well-
not going to bid this out, do we need,
Probably just to proceed with, maybe we don't, but we probably ought to have something.
I mean, if we're not planning on, if we're
We
planning on.
might
bidding it
end
out,
up having to, as this thing progresses, some of it.
I would just hate to come back, have to wait to come back the next month. If
Right.
we, and wait to bid this out and we're another month behind, if that's what we have to do, so. I mean, I guess we could have a motion that allows for a bid if needed. Is that? work?
That sounds good. Then,
So
because we
I'll
don't
just-
meet again until the middle of July.
So I'll,
We've got to get moving on this.
I'll just move that we I just move that we start to proceed to build out the sanctuary, and if need be, within the next month, before the next commission meeting, if need be, if we find that we need to bid out for those services, that we approve the advertising of that if so needed.
I think that's good because we get into this with Jerry and see it may be more than what these folks can do. So we have a motion on the floor. I'll second that. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, under unfinished business, we have Parks Community Center and nobody is
I
here.
just
so-
put it, I wasn't
May I
very
ask one
sure.
question before you move on? Under that motion, is it possible for our community service people to go ahead and start tearing up carpets or
Oh,
doing
yeah.
whatever?
Yeah, I think we need to get that.
Whatever
going.
needs to be done,
Yeah.
like the demolition process, I
Yeah,
guess?
yeah, we could get that started Monday, I can get going on that.
Not Monday, Tuesday.
Tuesday, I've already gone.
Yes,
schedule
Monday's
that.
already.
Tuesday, we can do something.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Parks isn't here, so the next item on the agenda is new business. Do you have a chance to look over the business? Do you have any questions?
What's Catherine Blankenship being hired as?
Sin, is
Ta-
it public knowledge? I don't know. One of the
What?
workers.
There's been an illness in the prosecutor's
Oh.
office, and she's going to be off for a little bit. And the
Okay.
fact that there's only 2 people up there, it's left one person, and so he had to get somebody just temporary. I think it's going to be for a couple weeks because she has
It
to go
is.
to do some stuff at college. But she was just filling in, and it was kind of an emergency, temporary basis till,
Okay.
she has to go do her twirling. And then hopefully the person will be back. We don't know how long it's gonna be, but. No questions under new business.
I'm moving new business.
A lot of budget revisions in the budget.